Welcome to yet another episode of Third and Short, where we talk sports and all sorts of things. I got my guy, DJ Plum, a.k.a. Jason Plummer, in the building. What's happening, fam?
Yo, what it do? Back for another week, be able to talk sports and see what's good, what's going on in the world and all that good stuff. What's going on with you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's sports and all that, but it's the dog days of summer almost. I mean, I ain't gonna hold you. It already feels like it's that with this NBA Finals matchup, which we're gonna talk about just in a few. But before we do that, we gotta remind the people, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and all that good stuff. I really enjoyed the commentary. You know what I'm saying? I wonder how many of y'all that was like, no, man, we care about basketball, is still watching it. I got to go back and see what those rating numbers are looking like. But nonetheless, right, let's talk about it, right? We right here. The NBA Finals, the one that everybody dreamed of, the anticipation, the climax, right? The build-up for this particular series, the matchup that everybody...
Stop your shit. Just stop your shit right there. Just stop your shit right there.
What do you mean?
Just stop your shit right there. Let me just stop you off rip. And we ain't even doing that today. We ain't even doing that today.
Okay, fine. So maybe it wasn't the matchup that everybody was hoping for, but all the basketball purists were excited. They say styles may fights. Matter of fact, you said that last episode, but nonetheless, we're 2 games in, right? The Pacers surprised everyone, was all on Hallie's, after he hit that game-winning shot. We'll talk about that too. But now game 2 happened, and they were able to tie it 1-1. OKC was, and Shea being Shea made it do what it does. So what are your thoughts about the series? As the purist, the person who loved it, are you getting is it living up to everything that you had hoped it would?
Well, for those of us who actually really do love the game and the nuances of it, yeah, it actually is giving us what we want. It's giving us adjustments. It's giving us people who are sitting here making detailed assessments during real-time games and making adjustments off of that. Shout out to Rick Carlisle and Mark Daigneault for doing that. And it's seeing players find out who they truly are and what they're supposed to be made of in the moments that count. Again, is this the most ideal setup? No, it's not. But it's what you got. So deal with it. And in that point, I want to be able to see the best basketball players on the court play their best basketball. I haven't seen that fully from Indiana. I've seen a version of it from OKC. I am pleased with what I'm seeing from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The MVP is playing like an MVP, 34 points in the second game with the win, 38 points in the loss in the week in game 1. Still showing up, was able to get 8 assists in the second one, so he was able to get other people involved. I'm very happy with what they're doing. Their defense shows me everything that I've been looking for. So for me, this series should continue along the path of what I expected, which was a competitive 6-game, 7-game series.
Yes. I mean, listen, man, I'm at the edge of my seat, right? Like every bounce of the ball, every shot, every play, the excitement. I mean, oh my God, no. So far it's played out, first of all, I want to go back to the first game, right? Because I saw what the NBA was doing. I saw what the commenters were doing. They were getting y'all niggas gassed up, okay? Yes, Haliburton, who's having a horrific game, or not even the best game so far up until that point. Yes, he hits the game winner. Woohoo! Because that's all that matters. And I get it because he won the game, 1,000%. But the way they were hanging on the net, it was like, come on, y'all. You won't be around the next year. I'm just like, I get it, because you got to hype it up. And so by them winning in OKC, it's like, oh my God, we have a series. You know what I'm saying?
How's that hyping? Who was hyping it up? Nobody even thought Indiana was going to be in the series.
What are you talking about?
Most people, including you, thought this was going 4 games, 5 games at the most.
3. I said 3. I wanted to say 3, but I said 5, yes. But after they won that first game, people were going nuts on Hallie's nut. They were calling him Hallie Curry, right? Like, it's a series now. So what I'm saying is, if you're narratively looking at it from a standpoint, right? If OKC would have came out and murked them, people's hopes or whatever, who were already tepid about this series in the first place, now it's like, oh, wait a minute. So you hear all about how it was a close game, game 1, oh my God, right? So, because remember, I said I didn't think that the Pacers stood a chance, right? If we're talking about the vaunted defense, how they're able to be the next dynasty potentially. They want 68 games, want to compare them to the greatest team. So I'm like, okay, well, based off the information, then how is the Pacers still supposed to be playing against this team when they only really faced like the Knicks, who people didn't really believe in, a fucking hobbled Cavs team that you mentioned before? And so my point is like, all right, so I'm saying I peep game because that was the best outcome to try to muster up some excitement about the series for people who thought it was going to be a rappy rap. And then game 2 rolls around, and yes, that's what a little bit more of what I expected. So what I'm saying is I'm still saying 5. Right? I'm still saying 5. I think it's going to be more of what happened in game 2 than it wasn't what happened in game 1, right? Because I do think there's that vast of a difference between them, and maybe coaching can help a little bit. But I think that, yes, Haliburton did his thing, but come on, man, stop it with the, oh my God, he's a superstar. I get that they're trying to tell the story, but they're putting the cart before the horse. You got to do it a little bit more than what's been done so far. It was
funny.
You can't
tell the story up until this point of where the story is at.
What you mean? No, they are going beyond where it's at. They're talking about one game. You know how they do, bro? They bring up all the stats. Oh, this year, Haliburton, when it came down to the last few seconds of the game, he's 12 for 15. He's the most clutch player. Oh my God. Jay Williams is swinging. Like, come on, bro. Are you watching?
But all those things are still facts. Even if you don't necessarily agree with how they're picturing it or how they're doctoring it up, are they still not facts?
No, they're not facts. They are.
Yeah, no. Everything that Jay Williams dropped specifically about the number of clutch points and things that Haliburton has done.
Facts, bro. Okay, fine. They're all facts.
Okay, no. I guess you know what? You're right. We live in America. Nobody cares about facts.
Who cares? Right? Who cares? So my point still stands. I think it's going to be a 5-game series still. I get that they try to get people riled up. I saw people. Maybe you're not paying attention, but I literally watched the sports pundits get all of, oh my God, he gets all on his nuts after he made that game-winning shot. Cool. Right, but I'm saying I didn't fall for it. I still believe it's going to be game 5, over in 5. This is not going to be
by your prediction,
series.
This series, this means OKC wins the rest of the games.
Yeah. So
they're going to sweep the rest of this. So they'll win game 3, game 4, game 5.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
You want to put a bet on that?
I mean, what you want to put on it?
What you want to put on it? I mean, because you seem so confident that this is such a just.
Listen,
like for somebody who didn't even watch the NBA that much this year. So you be so confident about everything going on based off the information mostly that I've given you when it comes to the numbers, the stats, and everything else. I like to do this whole skip. Who said Shannon, we can put a case on it or whatever you want to do.
Who said you gave me stats? That's erroneous. Just because we talk sports for a few minutes here doesn't mean I'll do my own due diligence and research.
I never said that you didn't. You can't sit here. I never said that you didn't, but you can't sit here and say that I have not given you stats when I have dropped stats on every single show that we've discussed.
Okay, but stats is great for.
Wait, never mind. I forgot. Facts don't matter.
Stats are great.
That's right. They don't matter. So it doesn't. I mean, my stats don't matter because the facts don't matter.
So the fact that your boy hit the game-winning shot in game 1, yep, that's a fact. If they lose in 5, 6, 7, they still lose. That's still also a fact. If the margin of victory is crazy, that still could be, these incremental little pieces of fact did not tell the full story. So yes, people can cherry pick, but my narrative this entire time has been consistent. Inconsistent.
No, but it's also cherry pick.
It's not about cherry pick. I came into this series
that fit your narrative like everybody else does.
Yeah, bro, I'm talking about when we came into this series, I didn't think it was going to be that great of a series. You were the one making the case for about being styles make fights, and you think it's going to be competitive. That was your case.
On the basketball court. I never talked about the entertainment factor.
My argument was never just about basketball, bro. You know that. So I'm going between both the business, the entertainment value, the showmanship, and yes, the basketball. So
we already agreed that the showmanship was never going to be that big just because of the market.
Exactly.
So my point is, you got to talk about, you got to deal with what we got.
Not just because of the market. No. Let's not do that. It's not just because I stated in the last episode the reasons why. The narrative, the storytelling has not been compelling on behalf of the NBA. So when we get here, we have people that we barely know. So that was the point that I'm making. Yes, you're saying we're here now, right? What I was about to say when I was getting my haircut at the barbershop, when niggas be watching sports, I was asking, y'all watching the finals, et cetera, et cetera. Niggas was not on that. My barber, the nigga who cuts my hair, he's like, yeah, man, you be honest, I don't like both of those teams or the cities or whatever. He wasn't into it. So in real time, people are just turned off. So yes, you can deal with it, but guess what? People got options, so people aren't having to deal with it. We can deal with it and talk about sports, but it is what it is. It's just not exciting. It's not
but it's not, it's not exciting to you.
Yes, I'm speaking for me.
And I'm speaking for me. That's my whole point. You keep saying it as if you speak for all the masses. You speak for a percentage of a segment that watches or does not watch, just like I speak for a segment that doesn't.
I speak for a large percentage. And if you want to look up facts, look up the amount of people who watched this series and who didn't. Or
Hey,
even watched this
8.9. I
series
can tell you
and
numbers.
compare
Like
it.
I said, I know all the
Woo.
numbers. 8.9 million was the people that watched the very first game. That was the lowest rated final since the since the 90s.
Thank you for the facts that prove me right. Thank you. Thank you.
The fact that we've already agreed that this wasn't going to be that. But again, to your point, what fact does that really make if nobody really cares about these teams? Because if this was Ant-Man,
not paying me, bro. The NBA is not paying me, right? So I can get out here. I can get out of here and be like, fuck the finals. The shit is whack. It's whack juice. It's yarn berry. I'm barely watching this shit. I prefer to watch old reruns of 24, right?
Agreed.
We have a platform, and so for the time that you and I get to give our thoughts, I give mine. Right? I'm not pushing back on yours.
I get a chance to disagree with your thought. That's all.
So the idea, great, but I still can get mine out though, right? Which is, this shit is whack juice like I said it was, and the fact that the stats that you just pointed out speak to it. Now,
let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
What if anything could make this exciting then?
Nothing. Die quickly. This series is a wrap.
So then this never had a chance to begin with.
Quickly. Welcome.
If you're telling me there is nothing that this could do to be good, then this series never had a chance to be exciting no matter what or who happens. We could have 7 games of last-minute shots that go down to the wire, and you're telling me that you wouldn't enjoy that.
No, I'm telling you that in retrospect, people might enjoy telling the story, but you got to get people to the movie theater, bro. Not everybody goes to see the movie on the first fucking run, right? Some people see it in the reruns, right? Some people don't watch it all. They hear about it from little scripts. So this is all part of the entertainment. Right? And the factory. So unfortunately, the NBA, to your point about whether it's because of salary caps or whatever, finds themselves in a predicament. All they can do is ride this shit out the same way they had to ride it out when they had duds in the past. There's nothing they can do about it, right? But what they can do, maybe in using it as hindsight to say, okay, wow, this shit is crazy. The same way the NBA is trying to figure out what they're doing about their All-Star game because this shit is crazy. A lot of the NBA's other aspects of their business isn't the greatest. Right? So they're trying to adjust for it, and we're seeing the outcome of some of that. And it's okay for people like myself to call it out, right? And and the thing that gets me is, just because I don't like it doesn't mean I don't necessarily have an appreciation for the game. Because for all the people who have an appreciation for the game, there are plenty of places that you can appreciate the game, bro. It's not just the NBA. The NBA does not corner the market on basketball. Right? And some purists will say that unfortunately the NBA game, because of all the money that these guys make and how they don't take the game seriously and how, we don't have fundamentals in the US. So when you start talking about that, people who are pure like that would go to spaces and look for places where the game is being played a certain type of way. So shout out to all the San Antonio fans out there. Or the people who find all the different ways that we can watch basketball internationally now to appreciate the game being played in a particular type of way. So miss me with that, right? People can just say this product and how it's been built through the years is just subpar. That's it.
Okay. I mean, and you have a right to feel that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me get back to my question, which is what you want. You said it's going to be over in 5.
Yes, 5.
I said 6 or 7. So what's the
6 or 7? So you get 2 of them.
I told you. You said you went from 4.
What was your original
You went from 5 to 3. My original pick was OKC and 7. I could see it going 6.
Okay, 7. So you say So you got 7. I got 5.
No, you said you had 4.
Yeah, no, I said 3, but
which is 4.
Yeah, no, I started off with 5. No, I mean, we're past the point of a sweep, so what's even the point of making a 4 now?
Regardless, the win is the win. Like the 4 is the 4.
Go back and watch it. I mean, I was solid on 4. I mean, on 5, I was being funny about 3. Obviously, can't win 3. I just don't think it's going to be a series. So that's just my opinion. We'll see how it turns out. You know what I mean? I don't really give a fuck enough.
No, we that is clear. This is quite evident.
Yeah, I'm gonna have fun with it. But who obviously cared a little too much, because I think that might have been the Pittsburgh Steelers. Right?
Speaking
this has been a long time coming for them because they dropped quarterbacks. They were just chilling there. We draft nobody for real. So obviously they knew this move was coming, and I guess Aaron Rodgers took his poor sweet time. What are your thoughts, right? NFL, Aaron Rodgers is back, y'all.
I really can't wait.
What are your rival teams? How do you feel about that?
I don't give 2 shits, to be honest, about what I feel. And I can't wait for football season to get here because I'm going to rip into a few things. But let's just get started with here. I'm not concerned. I'm not worried. I really, honestly do not care. The Aaron Rodgers that I saw, who was also coming off, I'm going to give him all his props. He was coming off an Achilles injury after that, and he was playing in New York with the Jets, which weren't very good. I mean, it was a shit show from the coaching staff and all that stuff down. And guess what? In that division, which is putrid, he sucked. Now you come to the big boy division. You think Myles Garrett cares? Do you think Madubuike cares? We don't. He gonna learn what it's like to play in a real big boy division, playing real big boy football with things that matter. Honestly, and from all the reports and everything that I understand, being the team's third choice while also having you being their third choice is just, I don't know how much more poetic that can get, because that's probably the same place they'll also place in the division, which is third. So for me, this was a whole much to do about nothing. They need a quarterback, they need a name, and a franchise like the Steelers that has a pedigree, I will give them that, has a pedigree, has a background. For me, this is more of, y'all really either trying to get Mike Tomlin sent out the door, or are you just really so unsure yourself as a football franchise that you're willing to capitulate to all of these different things with this one person who actually only has one ring to show for it and not a whole lot else other than a whole lot of drama. But if he wants drama, hey, he'll make plenty of news. Maybe they should do Hard Knocks in the AFC North this year at some point.
What are they capitulating to get him?
Well, in the sense of they waited, they passed on quarterbacks in the draft, they passed on a bunch of other opportunities. From what I understand, Justin Fields was your first choice, from what I understand, for Pittsburgh. Your first choice was in the building, started 4 games for you last year, and felt like the franchise that Aaron Rodgers, the guy you just signed, left, kicked him out, was a better opportunity for him. That says a lot. Pittsburgh, I mean, to put it this way, Justin Fields, in our estimation, what would you say he's earned?
Nothing.
Right?
He ain't earned shit.
He ain't earned shit. So for a quarterback who was supposed to be even given a chance in Pittsburgh, if you will, to be their quote unquote first choice, and this guy says, nah, I'm good. I think I'm better enough to take my opportunities to a city that sucks and has consistently sucked even since to the 90s. That says a lot to me about what's going on in Pittsburgh. And I don't know if all of this
maybe about what's going on with him. Or what's going on with him. Well, I mean, if he was all that in a bag of chips, why didn't he play more last season?
Well, that's a good question.
Rhetorical. That was rhetorical.
No. But to your point, that's a good question.
What I'm saying is fuck him. What I'm saying is fuck him. It's rhetorical.
No. What my point is to your point, if Pittsburgh said all of that, why was he their first choice and he still didn't want to stay?
Bro, people get desperate. First of all, this whole third choice, first choice thing, I know that in the dream world, everybody want to be everybody's first choice. It doesn't work out that way. Some of us are fortunate maybe for that to work out the case, and some people it's not, right? Michael Jordan was a third choice in the draft. It worked out well for the Bulls, right? There's been plenty of cases where people found something else, a diamond in the rough, whatever, made it work.
That was a third choice, but that wasn't his choice. Both parties here had the option of choosing.
Who cares? They're choosing each other now, though, right? The news broke.
They had no choice.
Okay, so what did we argue? They chose each other ultimately because a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, they weren't each other's choice. Who cares? I think the Pittsburgh Steelers knew this entire time, which is why they didn't necessarily worry about it. And so with this culmination, or whatever the fuck you want to call it, they knew he's going to sign with them. So like, all right, cool, we finna pass on the draft. We have a different game plan, okay? So that's number one. I'm saying I get it for somebody in division or whatever. You might not look at it as a thing, cool, right? But for me, if they do have a competent quarterback, I am a storylines-driven type of person. Okay, because I think it was unfortunate for your boy Aaron Rodgers to get hurt how quickly he did when he first showed up. Yo, this shit was crazy. Maybe it's his karma, who knows, right? But the fact of the matter is we never really got to see what that was going to be because homie got hurt pretty quickly, right? So boom, he gets hurt, finally works his way back. I think Rodgers, and I think thanks to Brady, gives people hope that he could be serviceable enough. We saw what happened with Brady. He went to Tampa, a Tampa team that wasn't all that great, but he had a great player come there, maybe with some stability, maybe with some leadership, maybe a player friendly environment, right? That had some kind of mojo going, and they were able to do a couple of things for a couple of years. So I think it's completely possible if we're looking at Aaron Rodgers and saying, okay, yeah, he got injured, but what level of proficiency, what level of arm strength, what level of movement does he still have? And unfortunately, based off of my limited information about the NFL, there's not that many great quarterbacks. You're like, you know what? Oh my God, I'm going to take them over this guy. Maybe he's 15th, 12th, 10th in somewhere's death chart if you're talking about the best quarterbacks in today's game. But if he's serviceable, he's definitely better than the bullshit that fucking Pittsburgh been dragging out here since Ben Roethlisberger has been gone, bro. It's been a long fucking time. And even with that being said, right, the coach, Mike Tomlinson, has been able to maintain some level of, I guess, I would say mediocrity if you're talking about 8-8, but if you're talking about winning 10 games, maybe 11, or being able to go to the playoffs with some of the dregs that he's had, and now he got a guy who maybe is serviceable, who's now a year removed from a previous injury, who probably may be somewhat motivated to show he still got it, because at the end of the day, people like you who will point to his one ring, right? Maybe the storyline here is the comeback season window, the opportunity for Aaron Rodgers to be able to get one more ring, and while doing so with a storied franchise. To me, that would be 2 if I think about it, right? So I'm going to cheer for him, not only because I think it'd be a great story,
Can I ask you a question?
Also because it would be at the expense of your Baltimore Ravens.
Well, look,
that he would come there and just
I'm not worried about anything that you say at the expense of my Ravens, considering we already know where your fandom lies and you haven't picked up your fandom since. So, considering that, let me ask you this. Did you cheer for Russell Wilson last year?
No, absolutely not.
Because it's the same story. Here's the difference between
it's not
me and
the
you.
same story.
It's going to be the exact same movie with the different role players. So now instead of the Naked Gun with Liam Nielsen, with Leslie Nielsen, we'll go with Liam Nielsen now. That's all we're going to get. And it's not going to be any funnier. The movie is not going to get any better. The movie is not going to change the ending.
I got you. How many? What did Pittsburgh go last year?
I want to say either 9-8 or.
And who's there? And between Justin Fields, who wasn't shit before he got there, and I don't know that he's going to be shit afterwards, cool. And you bring up Russell Wilson, which I think is a fair enough comp, but MVP heights that Aaron Rodgers reached is far superior than the heights that
I would
Russell
say
Wilson
Aaron Rodgers is more talented than Russell Wilson.
Right.
Or
so
more talented.
Right. And so I'm saying that, yeah, we're going to see. But in this particular story, I think there's a lot of narrative here that for a team that was 9-8 with those guys, if he can be 11-7 or whatever the math is for that,
and out the playoffs,
that would be.
That would be absolutely to you. If that's amazing to you, fine. I'm sorry. The last thing I thought about the vaunted Pittsburgh Steelers was the fact that they was going to play a game where they were, trying to be average. Maybe just making the playoffs. That's Pittsburgh Steeler way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if that's what they're playing for, they've achieved that consistently.
I thought the goal was to be able to get
a ring.
They went out and got Aaron Rodgers. Whether or not you believe that he can still help them, they clearly believed enough to not only not draft anybody else, but let go and not necessarily. So it's going to be a difference of opinion. I'm willing to bet with them just because they've seen it up close enough more than I have. They obviously have a vision for where they think this can kind of play out. And I think both of them may need each other to kind of catapult back into relevancy and maybe even save Mike Tomlinson's job. So we'll see if they're right or you're right. But if I had to put my money on it, that one, I think they're going to be better than 9 games for sure. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, okay, here's a bet that I'll put for you, right? So 11 games. Pittsburgh.
I don't care. See, here's the thing. I don't care about winning 11 games. If you're going to tell, because 11 games to me means nothing. They can win 9 or 10 games without Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, if you want to tell me this year was worth it for Pittsburgh, you got to win a playoff game.
Okay. So you don't think they're going to win a playoff game? Okay.
They haven't won one since Ben left.
All right, playoff game.
Win a playoff game.
Okay, so what you want to put on that?
What you got?
What you
got?
Okay. We'll talk about it offline then. I don't know if the state of Georgia allows for this type of wagering. So we going
online. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, look. We can always go back to bottles. I know your favorite is tequila. You pick a bottle, pick a size.
Okay, bet. We'll cheers to that. You already know what my bottle is. I already know what your bottle is. We'll do that there. Okay, we'll put a bottle on it.
Put a bottle on it.
Put a bottle. Now, speaking of business of sports, right? Because we talk about wagering and all that, and we already know that's big business. But you know what business just got even bigger? This whole NCAA thing that just went down, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because from what I understand, there was a settlement that has changed the landscape, and there's big business afoot in a league, or I should say, well, I guess you could say a league, that didn't have this for a very long time. And there was a period of time when there was a transition with the NIL where players are actually able to see some money from their name, image, and likeness. But now it looks like the door has been kicked wide open. So let's talk about it, man. What the hell is going on?
Look, dude, I just wish we could go back one more time and be collegiate athletes, or at least around that era of time. I know I had the ability to do some things, but man, with the way money is given out nowadays, this is ridiculous. So in essence, what has happened is the NCAA and legislation has finally allowed for each school individually to start paying their athletes, their student athletes, out of money that they get on revenue. Whereas before it was basically you can only give scholarship money per se and stuff like that. You can only give out money through scholarships. And then all the other money was made through NILs and things like that, your boosters and all of that stuff. So now you got two ways that student athletes can earn money. The difference is this also it comes with a committee that's also been added to, I guess, kind of help oversee how this is going to go and make sure that money is kind of flowing definitely to the student athletes the way they're supposed to be. I believe the cap is about 20 million per university with a 4% annual growth average per year. So what this does now is this allows a school to basically say to their athlete, hey, you come here, we'll give you X amount of dollars. But now it's also like a contractual type of thing, because I think they can lock this in to the school for up to like 2 years. So for a perfect example, let's say Cooper Flagg was still in, who just getting ready to come out in the NBA draft. If he decided he wanted to go to Duke, but not take up money from them, he could effectively get an NIL deal that paid him $5 to $7 million, and he could go to Duke and he could transfer the following year because he could get an NIL deal at another school for a different amount. Whereas if he signs his deal with Duke directly for that money based on revenue, he would then have to stay at Duke, or Duke would at least control his rights for 2 years based on that. So that's where it gets a little bit hairy and tricky, and it's going to be very interesting to see how these schools start to divvy out, because obviously different schools got different amounts of money. When you got like schools like Arkansas and the Texases and people out there with the big money donors and owners out there, there's a lot of money that can already be shifted, but we can already see that money doesn't necessarily mean that you're still going to get the best talent or the best product on the field. So it's a mixture of both, but it's an opportunity now for student athletes to make a lot more money, and kind of may help tie them to schools a little bit longer with that. The biggest other part of this is they're retroacting this all the way back to, I think, about 2014 and 2015. So you got athletes who the NCAA realized they were making money off of. They're like, all right, we owe y'all some money back from what we were able to, the billions of dollars we were able to make on that. So there are a lot of student athletes from that era up until, I think, up until this year, who are able to collect on their name, image, and likeness residuals, if you will.
Wow. I mean, I'll be honest, when I heard about this story, there's a lot to digest, right? Not because I didn't understand it, because honestly, it just sounded like there's going to be a transition to creating college sports into a baby version or a college version of the major leagues, right? The big boys, if you really think about it, right? You have salary caps, right? I mean, you may not have like a commission or whatever, but you have a commissioner, right? And you have collective bargaining. And I have to imagine that that's probably going to be on the horizon too, if it's not already kind of baked in, right? Just in terms of athletes being able to come together and collectively speak on behalf of, their benefit, right? And that could be anywhere from what percentage of the revenue they're getting and so on and so forth. So I ain't gonna hold you. Like, on the one hand, I'm super happy for business. I'm super happy for the players, right? Because I think when you, just from a business principle standpoint, it's crazy the idea that the NCAA and the colleges and universities were making so much money off of these kids. And for what? Okay, I get it. You're providing scholarship and housing and stuff like that. But the amount of revenue that they were generating, I just think kind of far exceeded whatever benefit that they were getting at the same time. Mm-hmm. Right. So I do think like the fact that they're going to be compensated, I'm hoping that maybe they can do some things in terms of putting it into trust and allowing these kids to have nest eggs, or just be smart with the money, because we also know that sometimes when these young people get money too soon, which is probably already happening now, but certainly you have adults who don't do well after college, who then hit the NBA or NFL and end up being broke after 5 years of leaving the league. So I do think it's going to be a lot of fallout from this, even though, yes, it's great, kids, get your money, I am mad, do your thing. But but I do think that there's going to be a lot of adverse effects. And then when you talk about schools too, I mean, at the end of the day, listen, let's be honest, most of these kids ain't going to get this bread. It's going to be some of the top tier players and maybe some, it's the same thing in the league too, right? Some of the guys get the 50 million, you got guys on veteran minimums, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know how that is going to impact, because you may have guys who traditionally would have went to one of the top tier schools, but if another school who's not quite top tier got a couple of dollars and that person is making a business decision, I don't know that it's going to allow the schools who have consistently been at the top to stay at the top. I do think the NIL is going to give a lot of people an opportunity to sidestep the situation in a lot of ways. But this is a lot to digest, and I wish them a lot of luck. You know what I mean? I think in terms of the people responsible for kind of putting this together, because you're going from a system where these kids were getting zero, nada. You know what I'm saying? Then you create the NIL, and then now it's like this busted wide open.
Well,
I'm all good for a good busted wide open. But
let's not say they were getting nada. They were getting nada over the table. We all know.
That's true. That's true.
We all know.
That's true.
Come on, bro. You remember our days at Florida State.
Yeah, but there were certain players who weren't getting anything. There's a lot of players who weren't. Right? A lot of players. I mean, and even if they were getting something, it goes back to what we were saying before. Like,
still
it wasn't the value. Yeah. They were making billions.
Yeah, no. It was still
pennies.
Even today, it's still pennies on the dollar comparably.
Yeah, it's
but to your point, it's just open now to where the average Joe can now at least feel like a hero. See what I did there?
I mean, I tried. So, did you have any particular schools that you think are going to benefit from this, or any tiers of schools? Like, I mean, obviously we're Florida State. There's other big programs. I mean, what do you think the impact's going to be before we move on? Like, you think it's going to be a big school thing in terms of just getting more, or do you think it's going to be a school that might come out of nowhere and all of a sudden they competing for real?
No, I don't see it opening the playing field that much more. I actually just seeing it opening it up more for the Alabamas, the Georgias, the SEC schools, the Big Ten schools for the most part. I think schools like Florida State's, Clemson's, and other ones will find their ways because they have little niches to be able to get into. But unless you have a collective that's truly going to spend that money, I don't see outside of the Power Five, because also these conferences hold so much power with the schedules they play, the games that they play in, the markets that they hit. So it's like, if you want to go pro, it used to be a time when you wanted to necessarily go pro, you went to Florida State and you got all the attention. You still can to a degree, but those kids now are going to the Georgias and all those SEC schools. And so all I see is this is an opportunity for them to grow the game for them within their own individual leagues, because they've already had this power. And before you know it, I think we're going to end up, this is going to lead to super conferences, where we got two basic super conferences, and it's wherever the chips may fall from there.
Yes, I will say I do have one dark horse, and that's, what's that team? Damn, they were the ones who had the death penalty.
SMU? Or University of Miami?
Yes, SMU. I think SMU, I would look out for SMU as my dark horse sleeper school that might rise to prominence in this environment, right? Because I think they have been already making moves to kind of put themselves in position to do some things. And so now they're kind of busted wide open, and I would kind of look out for them for the most part.
Well, speaking of changing and, landscape changes and stuff like that, I understand that there may be some possible changes that are coming forward with ESPN with regards to one of their senior reporters or analysts and TV, or I won't say TV host, but I guess we would say game time host, Doris Burke. I understand that there are some rumblings about her potentially getting ready to head up out of there or be released. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. So bye, Felicia. People
I can't.
go.
I quit.
People, you know what I'm saying? People get let go all the time, B. I don't care that she walked away. I don't care about how much you like Doris Burke, okay? I'm trying to figure out what all the fucking outrage is about a fucking Doris Burke, okay? She got a job. People applauded her when she had the job, when she was doing a good job. If her employers feel like she's no longer doing a good job or no longer bringing value, they want to kick it to the curb, and she's supposed to get some kind of shield because she's a woman. You know what I'm saying? We applauded it, but listen, equality also means, like, there's been a bunch of dudes who've been shown the door. You know what I'm saying? What happened to Mark?
True.
You You know what I'm saying? Mark and the other guy that was host, Jeff Van Gundy, guys that we actually really enjoyed. They got shown the door. There was no Cry Me a River for them, so don't miss me with that. You know what I'm saying? I was cool with her. I like her, don't get me wrong. I appreciate Drake was showing her some love.
I was going to say, I blame Drake for this.
Yeah, it's cool. but like all these fucking think pieces and shit, you know, I stand with Burke. Why don't you sit your ass down? You know what I'm saying? She'll be all right. You know what I mean? She'll be all right. You know what I mean? Sometimes people's time has come and they go, you know what I mean? But I think, and the landscape is crazy, bro. When you think about all of the men and women out here, man, you're fighting for attention. And it's harder to get attention, especially if a person is like, just not really resonate with your audience to a certain extent. Sometimes that's part of the problem too. So yes, it was cool. Maybe this stage may not have been the stage for her, but if we gotta part ways, it's just business. It ain't personal.
Well, apparently this is something that's going on just in the industry, to your point, which people are getting all upset. Like Michelle Beadle was upset with Stephen A. Smith because she apparently got bumped off of her show off of Sirius XM with Stephen A's new deal. So then she's got shouts. But also her show was not good. So
neither is she.
Thank you. To your point, it may be just time to go. You know, I mean, but FanDuel is still paying you. You still got your show there. So it's like there are so many options. There's so many options that people have in today's media that I don't necessarily feel bad per se. And I get it. But again, I still blame Drake. You know, I wonder if this wouldn't have happened if Kendrick Lamar hadn't murdered him. I wonder if Doris Burke might be actually still loved. Because maybe Drake would still be attending NBA games, and then maybe she would get more love from that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I appreciate Rick Carlisle, right, was talking his talk. You know what I mean? He was there kind of speaking on that, right? But was he there for Jamel, when she got booted from ESPN for her commentary? How many people stood for Jamel? Right? Come on, man. I mean, I didn't stand for Jamel either. But the point is, I have nothing against Jamel. It's just that I was sitting down.
But you didn't stand either. I got you.
You know, but this next story is a hard turn, right? Because, you know, depending on if you have to stand up or sit down, you fill in the blank. It may determine. That was hard. That was a very tough lesson.
There you go.
It may determine if you can play a sport or not. Wow, I just did that.
No. It doesn't determine if you can play a sport or not. It determines where you play a sport, which side you play
if you're talking about women's sports, right? You can't play women's sports if you be standing up, is what some people believe. Okay. That's a hard transition, right? Right now, we're talking about Simone Biles. Recently, she was in the news because she made some commentary, and I guess this one, Riley Gaines, who's would you say an anti? I don't want to use the word anti. She's not anti, but she's certainly not pro-transgender when it comes to participating in women's sports. Is that the best?
Because she's a former college athlete that was also kind of spurned by this in actual competition, like literally.
Riley was?
Yes.
So you're saying she got spurned because she lost to a dude? Or lost to a...
like while in college, she competed and I think tied in 5th place with a transgender athlete.
Really?
Yes.
Right.
So her vitriol comes from a direct place of her and direct experience. It was not something that she's speaking on behalf of being on an outside. Her experience is direct with this. And so that's what led to her social activism and her call to action with regards to women's sports, transgenders in women's sports and things of that nature.
Yeah, and I know that Simone is someone who kind of supports the community for the most part. And so from my understanding, Riley was kind of shooting at Simone because she was like, well, you know, if men were able to compete in your sport, you wouldn't win as much, right? With some of the things that she said, things like that. But at the end of the day, this story comes up in many facets of sports. There was a story a couple of weeks ago about the person who won in California, and that causes, you know, a lot of consternation and conversation. So it is kind of a difficult one, and sometimes we get silly when things get difficult. But I guess the question is, where do you fall on this conversation, right? Like, you know, I think, you know, both people are making a point. And I guess the question is, where do you land on the story and maybe just in terms of the crux of the issue?
On the story itself, I can't tell either person that they're wrong based on their own experiences about how they feel. This is a very interesting subject for me because it's hard for me to tell certain people things when I don't have an experience that I can speak to directly. So what I mean by that is I don't have like a child per se. So I can't sit here and act like I know what it would feel like if I had a little girl who was competing against a transgender athlete. I couldn't tell you I would know how I would feel about that. I can tell you what my thoughts are and what I would think I would feel like, which is, for me, I would find it hard to necessarily accept in sports. I have no problem with anybody's choice about their life and their lifestyle and their things that they choose to do. But when we talk about an actual physical competition, which is regulated by the actual physical anatomy of a person, I think that does speak to, there is a difference that can be, there's a difference that can be seen and felt because of the actual physical side of it. And so for me, it's a little hard to say that I can accept a transgender athlete as a direct competitor when I know that, and I see it both ways, both if it was a male competing in a female sport or a female competing in a male sport, where that man in some ways beaten advantageous by physical anatomy. For me, it's an area that I wouldn't necessarily say I would land on, but I can see both sides. I just don't understand to where we may not be able to find a league in particular to where it's, if we're talking about equality, then we're talking about having a place and an ability that everybody can compete on the same plane on equal levels. And I think until we can find a way that we can level the playing field or say that the playing field is completely level, then it'll never be that. And I don't know if we should necessarily mix the two.
No, I think that was eloquently said. So maybe I'll be a little less eloquent about it, because I just wonder what is so hard for people to understand that it's not fair physically for men or people who are biologically men in many cases to compete against women who are biologically born as women. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Forgive me if I'm not, but I don't understand why even just saying that causes people consternation to a certain extent, right? Because I think a lot of times we're not talking about whether or not women are or transgendered men who were formerly biological women. Hopefully I'm saying that right? We're not really concerned about them competing with men in sports because we don't think, if we're being honest, there's any competition for real. That's why it's never one of those stories where we hear about a person who's transitioned or whatever the proper term is, right? And they're competing with guys and guys. No, that's not really the issue, right? Because we don't really see that as a threat for real. But it is a real threat when you're talking about, people who have those types of advantages, right? And I feel like, we got to protect women in this particular case, right? Because women have fought for a very long time for equality of some level or equity in terms of women's sports. We had Title 12, I think it was, a Title 9, different, things that's happened throughout the years to allow women to enjoy a space for them to compete amongst each other, et cetera, et cetera. And we've seen all of the progress, which still is lacking and still requires more work, right? And somehow we want to throw that off. And I guess the question is why. And here's the other fucked up part that people don't want to say out loud. Because Simone was like, well, they should be, maybe I'm paraphrasing and maybe I misheard this, but the idea that, yes, they either can compete with the women or they can do their own thing, right? Maybe have their own leagues, et cetera, right? That's bullshit, right? Because I think the truth, because this is where I agree with Riley, that if you do have women being competed with by, then maybe Simone is not as successful to a certain extent. I don't know. Maybe she still will be. Maybe her sport's a little bit different, but I do think she has a point there. So to say, oh, they should compete equally, that's bullshit, right? And then the other part that's fucked up is that you really can't have a league necessarily because guess what? Maybe you don't have the numbers, right? If you're just going to be honest, like how many people would you be able to find to be able to put together a league of athletes that maybe were all transgendered for it to be level for them to compete amongst each other, right? Would it have to be a league that are just all transgender women first? You know what I'm saying? Like, so if we're being honest, I feel like we want to upend a majority of people, a super majority, right? I mean, I'm talking about women who, like, whatever the ratio would be, right? To accommodate for a small group of people that I think is not, there's no balance there to me. There's an imbalance in what we're asking for, allowing for this to happen. And I think women have fought long and hard to have the opportunity to compete at the highest levels. And we're still seeing them from the Olympics, the highest level, still fighting for equity and equality when it comes to how much money they get paid and how much people view the sport and they participate. And these women work just as hard, if not harder than men do, right, in their respective sports. So I get that this is a sensitive topic. You obviously want to be sensitive because I agree with you wholeheartedly that when it comes to living your life, when it's doing your thing, I am not here to stand in anybody's way. I hope people get it how they can get it, as long as it's legal and you're happy and you're satisfied, you're satiated, cool. But there is a line when it starts to impact and affect other people who are just minding their business, or in this particular case, want to play their favorite sport. And I just do think that we got to be honest about the reason why this issue is never going to be resolved in a way that truly speaks to equity or even equality for those who are aggrieved, who are being really honest.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, man. But listen, this has been a great show. Look at us being respectful and ending on a respectful note. We want to wish everybody the best out there, right, when it comes to competition. But let's get to some quick takes real quick, because you know who I'm wishing the best for right now? Coco! I mean, with a name like Coco, how can you not be, why you look Coco? But not like that, though. So what do you think about that, man? She wins the French Open. What's happening?
Yo, shout out to her for winning her second Grand Slam. The sister's been at it since she's been 15. She is probably the second greatest thing as far as a tennis athlete that America has seen since the Williams sisters. Matter of fact, she's the last time American won the French Open was a Williams sister. So shout out to Coco for doing her thing. And let me also take a quick moment here to tell Miss Sabalenka, take your L, go home, and just suck on a lemon. When you lose with the same class that you would have wanted, the dignity and everything that you would have wanted if you had won. What you did was lowbrow, and what you said was just classless. I hope you clean that up later.
Yes, well said. Well said. And then also we got the NHL. You know what I mean? Finals tied at 1. I mean, who cares about the NHL?
Well, surprisingly, a lot of people do. Even more people than watched that first, more than people than had watched that first NBA Finals game. So at least
you don't want to tell me that.
Hey. So anyway, but shout out to the Florida Panthers. You know what I'm saying? We out from Florida. We represent Florida pretty hard. They're back in their third Stanley Cup final, but against Edmonton, and they're playing against Connor McDavid, which is who could go down as one of arguably the greatest hockey players alive. A win for Edmonton would not only do a win for Canada, which I think has been like 35 years since Canada has won a Stanley Cup. Not to mention, it would solidify his legacy. So there's a lot riding on the line. So I know anybody who's into hockey and stuff is probably paying attention to that. Very good series. Continue to enjoy.
Yes, this is the most that I've heard of hockey in like years. All of what you just broke down, and I completely understood it. It is the most that I've heard in like years. Well, listen, you got any final thoughts, man, before we get up out of here?
Hey, man, you know me. It's always just about love, life, and living. Enjoy your loved ones. Take time to enjoy people, and enjoy yourself.
Yes. And I guess I would say, listen, man, life is like the playoffs. You either go hard or go home. You know what I'm saying? Like the Pacers are going to do. We'll be back next week for sure.
We do agree on that.
Yeah, we'll be back for sure next week. Who knows? Will that be our final episode of this season? Because as you know, we'll be coming to an end, right, at the end of the finals. So I think if it's like, how many more games before next episode? Because if there's 3, we might be, it might be the season finale next season, if I'm right.
It may be actually that, because we got a game Wednesday, probably got a game Saturday. We may have maybe one more episode before the end of the season.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. So maybe it's a little, we got a little bit of time. But listen, for people out there, we appreciate y'all for tapping in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and all that good stuff. And I forgot to mention, but we got the merch, y'all. So definitely check out the merch. We're going to have some sports stuff coming soon. On behalf of my guy, DJ Plum, a.k.a. Jason Plummer, I'm Nick Nice. This is Third Sport.
Third and short.
That's easy for you to say. This is Third and Short. We'll see you next time. Until then, be easy. Peace.